I'm Ellis Martin. In this segment of the Ellis Martin Report, I speak with Dr. Paul Wessels, the President and CEO of Western Copper and Gold Corporation, trading on the New York Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange as WRN. Western Copper and Gold Corporation is developing the Casino Project, Canada's premier copper gold mine in the Yukon Territory, and one of the most economic greenfield copper gold mining projects in the world. The Casino Project hosts approximately 7.6 billion pounds of copper, as well as 14.5 million ounces of gold, one of the largest projects of its kind, again held by a junior mining company in the world. Paul, welcome back to the program. It's been quite a while since we chatted, I think about 10 weeks or so.
It's been a busy time, but always happy to be back talking to you, Alice, and your listeners. We always end up with some engaging conversations.
I'm hoping for that today, Paul. Don't let me down, okay?
I'll do my best.
You guys have been busy. You've been on the road for weeks and weeks and weeks meeting people. What's that all about?
It's interesting. I mean, if you look at, investor outreach, of course, the depths of summer are not a good time. So just before that and just after that are very busy times. Of course, September is a very busy time. And June now is an increasingly busy time. We were in Quebec City at the mining event of the North. We were at the RBC mining convention in New York City, and then did a couple other things in New York City. And then the Yukon being the Yukon, we actually have a very busy July in that's when we bring up investors. So a couple of things planned. The big one, of course, being the Yukon Mining Alliance trip in the second week of July. So very, very busy.
You have an obligation and a duty to really, for lack of another word, sell your company, not only to investors, but potential investors and to end users around the world that could take advantage of the massive casino project in the Yukon, which I've been to more than once. Quite an impressive operation. In fact, seeing you in your office in Vancouver like this, I'm wondering, well, who's running the show in the Yukon? But you have a very, very capable staff. Are you finding copper a hard sell right now?
Ellis, you and I have both been in this industry long enough, and we know it's incredibly cyclical. And so there's ups and downs in a bit of a down. But I'm going to be honest, in terms of commodities that I would want to be in right now, copper is by far the best. The reason that I'm so bullish on copper is that you have all of these things working in your favor. You've got China announced some stimulus actually yesterday. From where you are right now, your upside is stimulus in China. You've got the US economy still firing on all cylinders. And more importantly, if you have a pullback in the US economy, what's the push? The push is green energy. The push is electrification. The push is, what are we going to do about the carbon crisis? All of these things lead to higher copper demand. And if you look at the supply demand on copper, all roads lead to higher copper demand. And there just really is a real dearth of supply of projects that what we have with the Casino Project in Western Copper and Gold.
Look, I'm a believer. I'm just asking on behalf of the audience who maybe is sitting on the fence and not involved right now. I'm also a shareholder in your company and a shareholder in a few other of the copper companies that sponsor this program. I've believed in copper since I was a kid, since I built my first hand-generated electric generator using copper and magnets. I did that. And I built an electric car when I was 10 years old back in 1965 for some reason. So I'm sort of addicted to it at birth. I drive an electric car, and plus my electric bill is very high because of all the things I have around here that run on electricity, and you cannot ground a building, any building, without having copper in the walls. You can't have anything electric anywhere without copper surrounding you. Why isn't the price higher of copper? Seriously, if we have such a demand for copper right now and there's not enough mines to cover that demand, the price is not bad. It's around $4, but why? Just why?
Why? But think about where we started this discussion. We're in a bottom. If you told me 2 years ago that we're in a bottom and copper is 10 cents less than $4, I mean, it's like $3.90, I'd say it's not a bottom, that's a top. That's like a couple of years ago, that would have been top of the market for $1 copper. Here we're like, oh, why is copper only $4? I mean, our project, we ran the economics on our project. Every time we update our corporate presentation, we run the economics at spot. And we ran the economics at spot, and our project was $4.7 billion net present value, 26% IRR. Both of those are after-tax values. Absolutely enormous numbers. And like you said, people are like, why isn't the price of copper higher? And the thing is that it's going to be higher because what you're seeing, I mean, everyone's talking about it now. And it's like the way the government works, right? I mean, it's like, we got to do all these things. I mean, we have to do all these things. And the talking is now, the action is happening at its own pace and moves, unfortunately, slower than the talking that happens. But, we need to electrify. We need to have more electric cars. We need to be looking at exchanging out coal-fired power plants and replacing it with renewable energy. We know that. There's nobody that denies that. But it just takes time for these things to happen. And the problem is that suddenly there's a whole bunch of new power plants that are windmills and solar farms that all get announced and they all come in, and then suddenly there's huge copper demand. And then overnight we're going to have $6 copper, we're going to have $7 copper. We're going to see that. It's an absolute given that we're going to see that over the next, I would say, 3 to 5 years. And I'm not alone. I mean, I just saw a report from Citi. It was saying it's $1,200 a ton, which is a little under $6 a pound for copper in the next 5 years. I mean, everybody is predicting this. And so I actually think that this is a great opportunity to get into the copper market because, like you said, oh, well, it's only $4. It's a great time to buy.
I think I've been parroting the public with that question, not necessarily me, because like I said, I haven't sold a share of any of my copper shares in any of the companies that I'm involved with because I believe in it. And I'm just hoping that $7 price, $6 or $7 price doesn't come with inflation, because I think we've also seen that in the past couple of years, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's $6, $7 at $23 because the thing about copper, I talk to people about this all the time. Predicting the price of gold, get out your crystal ball, try to guess what the U.S. government's going to do. I mean, everybody's got a different theory for this. This is why people can come up with very wide-ranging sort of things. And I like gold. We've got 21 million ounces of gold at the casino project. It's a big gold deposit, don't get me wrong, but copper is easy to understand. This is supply and demand. I mean, this is economics 101. So when you get the Citis and you get the Wood Mackenzie's and you get the Goldman Sachs and they come out with these copper views, it's not them just waving their arms and talking about things. It's them looking at, here are all the things that are going to lead to the increase in demand, and that's going to create this demand for copper. And then they look at the projects that are coming up and they say, here are the projects that could potentially meet that demand. And for these projects to be economic, for banks, companies, large, the BHPs, Rio Tintos, Mitsubishis of the world to make these investments and boards to make these investments, copper is $4, copper is $6. And so if everything inflates, it just all inflates together, because to make those decisions, we need $6 copper to meet that demand that we see in the future.
Okay, you mentioned Mitsubishi, and I want to talk about that. There are several projects involving copper around the world. Once again, they're sponsors of our radio program. It has taken me from Los Angeles a day and a half to get to Dawson City, to get to the home base of where things happen, aside from Whitehorse in the Yukon. That's a long trip. It's a long trip. We're talking basically the Arctic Circle. And then from there, it takes a while to get out to your project. It's a great project. Don't misunderstand me. It's a beautiful place. You're doing great work. But of all the places in the world, it's a little bit, and talking about economics, it's not necessarily easy to get to. And yet, Rio Tinto and Mitsubishi have taken a position, a financial position, a stake in your company that I really haven't seen in any of the other companies that I'm covering right now.
Yeah. When I talk to investors, I say, look, why did Rio and Mitsubishi make their investment? And it really comes down to a few things. First of all, is size. So, I mean, with our project, the Casino Copper Gold Project up in the Yukon, we're talking the 5th largest copper gold project in the world that's controlled by a junior mining company. So there's a whole bunch of M&A activity in the major copper space, and that's a whole other discussion. But if you are looking to add a copper project and you're looking at the junior mining space, we're sitting with the 5th largest. So it's obviously a significantly sized project. That's point one. Point two is economics. And I always say, look, it's all fine and dandy to have lots of copper, to have lots of gold, all these things, and have lots of production. But at the end of the day, particularly in the base metal space, much more than in the precious metal space, companies are measured on how much money they make, not how much copper, not how much zinc, not how much base metals, how much money they make. So if you don't have an economic project, forget about it. So, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, this is a project which, from a feasibility study, had an 18% IRR at spot. It's a 26% IRR. This is a very, very economic project at the current market prices. Third, is this a country where you want to be? I mean, sure, we'll talk a little bit about being in northern Canada, but it's Canada. No one's going to nationalize your mine. No one's going to take it away. No one's going to come up with some new weird tax. I mean, all those things don't happen in Canada. It's the same way they don't happen in the US, same way they don't happen in Europe. It's an easy place to build and operate a mine. And then the fourth, and this is the trickiest, And this is the key really for us. And this is what got Rio involved, what got Mitsubishi involved. There's not lots of projects that have all four of these. The last one is critical, and that is the social license. And it's incredibly important. It's time, it's effort, it's spending time in the communities, it's spending time with Indigenous groups, it's having the right team. It's all those sort of skills that, let's be honest, mining companies historically have not been great at. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of with our company and with our team is that we've been able to develop a very, very good social license on this project. Rio wouldn't have given us one penny if they didn't feel that we had the support of the local government, the local First Nation, and the communities. And they wouldn't have topped up that investment, which they did less than 2 months ago. After the Mitsubishi investment in March, they had the right to top up, which they did. They wouldn't have made that top up if they, after all the work that we've done together, they didn't continue to feel that we have the support of the government, First Nation communities. Absolutely critical. You've got to have the size, you've got to have the economics, you've got to be in a jurisdiction that anybody wants to be in, and you have the support of that jurisdiction.
And the Premier's a mining guy.
And the Premier's a mining guy. I mean, the exciting thing for our project, we've been talking high level here, but exciting thing for our project is all the work on connecting the grid. All these economics, all these numbers I've been telling you about is about us self-generating our power using liquefied natural gas to generate power, which is a great solution, but obviously isn't as green as we'd like it to be. But I mean, it is full steam ahead on connecting the Yukon grid to the BC grid and then providing full-on grid power. The new Premier has been pushing that incredibly hard. There's actually a tweet yesterday where the Premier of the Yukon was sitting down with the Premier of British Columbia, and his little caption was, sitting down with the Premier of the British Columbia, talking about grid interconnect. I mean, this is top on his agenda right now. And so that is an absolute game changer on our project. I mean, and we're super excited about how that's developing. And all those numbers that I told you, I mean, way better than that when I've got grid power I can connect to.
After all this discussion, I can safely say, of course, underlining probabilities and the word potentially, that the equities, and your equities specifically, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily represent the current price of copper. That gap is wide.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the buying opportunity. It's like, I remember I asked my father when I was in my early 20s, I said, Dad, I had $10,000 or something like that I'd gotten as a bonus from my first job. And I was like, I'm going to invest some money and in the stock market. And I said, well, what do you know? He says, buy low, sell high. That's the only thing I know. Like I said, I mean, the one thing with our company, if you go to our corporate presentation, you go to the appendix, we got a slide in the back. We rise and fall with the copper price. I mean, the fact that the price is low and the fact that the future of copper is so strong right now makes this an excellent opportunity.
Paul, it's always great to catch up with you. Never boring, always fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me today in the program. Hope to see you soon.
All right. Always a pleasure, Ellis.
I've been speaking with Dr. Paul West-Sells, the president and CEO of Western Copper and Gold Corporation, trading on the New York Stock Exchange and the Toronto Stock Exchange as WRN. Go to the company's website, westerncoppercorp.com. I'm Ellis Martin, and I'm an investor with Western Copper and Gold Corporation.